So you want to get an illustration agent, or maybe you're wondering if you actually need one. Up until recently, I was an illustration agent at Folio. I worked there for 10 years, so today I want to share what I've learned about agencies, how you can apply and get noticed, the pros and the cons, and how to choose the right agency for you. Before being an agent, I used to be exactly where you are, trying to make it as an illustrator. I applied to a few agencies, I got shot down a few times, I wasn't good enough. That was a while ago, but I guess a lot of you can relate. You take some courses or go to college, then you graduate, and then what? Then you've got to find some clients and figure out how to make money. I felt completely unprepared for that part, and it's a pretty important part. One of the natural next steps a lot of new illustrators take is to try and find an agent to represent them. After all, agencies are there to take care of all that business stuff, and their job is to find you clients so you can just do the creative part, the fun part. Let me know in the comments if you've ever applied to an agency. I'm guessing there's quite a few of you. I've been doing a lot of research into agencies around the world in the last couple of months because I wanted to create a really useful resource for you. It's a directory of all the illustration agencies I could find from about 15 different countries. It gives you a rough idea of how many artists they represent, and it also tells you how to apply. You can find that resource at illustrators.com. Hopefully that's easy to remember. There are more than 100 agencies on that list. Each one of them represents multiple artists. Some are as small as 10 illustrators, and there are a few that are in the hundreds. So you'd think it would be straightforward to find an agent to represent your work with so many of them around. But as I'm sure a lot of you have realised, it's not as simple as that. It's not easy to get an agent. Now, I should say, plenty of successful illustrators don't work with an agency. You don't need one to be successful. However, they can provide a useful service to illustrators. A good agent can help you reach the kinds of clients you might not be able to find for yourself. They're experienced with things like contracts, pricing, and dealing with client problems. They also manage projects and give you more space to focus on the creative part. They work on commission, so they're paid a percentage of the project fee. But not every artist needs it or wants to pay for that service. So it just means there's more to learn and you have to spin more plates and wear more hats, which is totally fine. I'll just run through a few benefits of working with an agent and a few, not downsides exactly, but realities. If you work with an agent, you may have access to bigger and better clients. Agencies are often the first stop for brands and advertising agencies, for example. They can get in touch with an agency and get some recommendations for their project. It's way more convenient to do that than to hunt down individual illustrators. Agents can often negotiate larger fees too. That's not to say you can't do that yourself, but they have a lot of practice. And frankly, it's easier to negotiate on someone else's behalf than it is to do it for yourself because you don't have the same kinds of fears and emotions tied up into it. Similar to that, they have a lot of practice with contracts too. Contracts sometimes seem intentionally confusing, and having someone experienced to check those things is really useful. Being part of an agency gives you some social proof too. Being chosen by an agency signals to clients that you are at a certain professional level, and they promote your work. You have a support network when you need it, and they're good at handling difficult situations with clients. Those are all great, but you have to pay for it, usually between 25% and 35%. That's a significant chunk of your fee, but combined with the access to bigger budget clients and more experienced negotiators, it's often worth it. And having an agent isn't a guarantee. They can't promise you're going to be busy 100% of the time. If you join an agency, don't expect instant success. It takes time. So if that sounds appealing to you and you do want to go the agency route, how do you actually get one? Well, if you're at the start of your career, straight out of college with no clients of your own, you probably don't. In fact, I would recommend you don't even try until you've got a handful of clients of your own for two reasons. The first one is that it's unlikely an agent will want to take on a complete beginner. Agents aren't really for beginners. They represent established professionals. Even if your portfolio is great and you've got a unique style, they want to know the artists they're working with are more than just a website full of pretty pictures. They need to know you can handle yourself professionally, keep to deadlines, and that you've got the drive to work hard and be reliable for your clients. The only way they can really see evidence of that is if you've already found some of your own clients and you've completed those projects successfully. They don't have to be big clients, they're just proof that you can do the job. It takes trust for an agent to recommend an artist to a client. They need to know that you're a professional for them to make that recommendation. The second reason is, if you were to get an agent right at the start of your career, let's say your style is just phenomenal and you're mind-blowingly skilled, an agent would probably want to lock you down, rightly so, because they see your potential and they want to help you develop your career. That is a great option to have as a new artist. But if you were to work with an agent right from the start of your career, let them handle pricing, finding work, contract negotiations, and all that other stuff that you don't really want to do, you'll never have a reason to learn it, and that puts you at a disadvantage. You will be completely reliant on that agent for as long as you work together. And if something happens that means you can't work together anymore, let's say you fall out, or maybe they retire, or whatever else, you get dropped right back at the start. You've got a portfolio, it's better now than it used to be, but you don't know how to find your own work, you don't know how to read a contract, and you might, depending on how the agency operates, not even have the contact details of the clients you worked with in the past because they're the agency's clients. That's not a great position to be in. Ideally, I think you want to have some experience of finding your own clients. You need to know what you're looking for in a contract. You need to know how to price your own work. You need to be self-sufficient, basically. That's what this YouTube channel is all about, helping you learn those skills. So subscribe if you want to learn more. You don't need to be an expert at all those things, but you'll know enough. And you can approach an agency as a partner, not as a beginner. That's a much better foundation for that relationship. And then the agency can help you take your career to the next level. If you're in that early stage, by all means, get in touch with some agencies. But maybe the first step could be to ask for some feedback. It serves as a way to introduce yourself and your work and to get some help. If you take their advice and continue to level up, when you do want to apply, they already know who you are. So let's say you're past all that and you're getting some clients already and you're ready for an agent. This is when you are an appealing artist for an agency to take on. Most of them will be happy to receive a simple email from you with a short introduction, a few images and a link to your portfolio, basically the same way you'd approach a client. But a lot of them have specific ways they want you to apply and submit your work. Could just be a specific email address, could be an online form, or it could be a more detailed instruction about exactly what they want to receive from you. I'm sure it's not designed to be, but think of this as your first test. Can you follow the instructions from the agency website to apply in the way they want you to apply? If you can't, your work might not get looked at, so make sure you look at the submission guidelines. In the agency directory I've put together on illustrators.com, you can see how to apply to every agency on there who have specific instructions, and for the ones that don't, I've put together some general guidelines you can follow. It's up to date now, but it's always worth double checking the agency website too, just to make sure. Not every agency is right for your work, so don't apply to all of them. Be selective. Find the agencies that fit your vibe and your values. Tell them what you're good at, tell them what you want to do with your career so they know how to help you, and then you wait. And you wait a bit longer. And honestly, you might not hear back. It is very competitive, and it will probably take a while. Make sure to follow up, and if you don't hear back, try again in a few months. Going through that process of applying and putting yourself out there can be pretty stressful and emotionally draining, just like emailing clients. But keep this in mind. A lot of agents have had ambitions of becoming an illustrator themselves. Some of them are even illustrators in their own right alongside their day job. Some of them, like me, are failed artists. They get it. They are the same as you. And personally, I remember exactly what it's like to be at that stage, trying to get some interest in my work from agents or clients. It's awful. But I say that in the hope that it puts your mind at ease. Agents love seeing new work and speaking with illustrators if they have time. They're not going to be annoyed by you sending a follow-up email. Just imagine if all the illustrators were too scared to get in touch with agents. Their life would be so much more difficult. You are doing them a favor by showing them your work, and they do appreciate and understand all the anxiety that goes along with it. So there's no shortage of agencies out there. How do you choose the right one? Or at least narrow down a short list that you think might be the right fit for you? Because you should apply to a few that you like the look of. A lot of illustrators take the first offer they get. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But if you can narrow down that long list into some that you're genuinely excited to work with, that's great. Here are a few things to look out for. What kinds of styles does the agency already have? If your work is very similar to another artist that they represent, it's unlikely they'll want to take you on because they've already got that style covered. What size is the agency? How many artists do they represent? And how many agents do they have? There are a handful of agencies that represent 200, 300, even 400 plus artists. That means there's going to be a lot of crossover in styles within those agencies. there will be at least a few artists whose work looks very similar to yours, which means you'll be competing for jobs within your own agency, which doesn't seem ideal. Having said that, agencies with that many artists often have more marketing power, so they'll probably get more inquiries from clients overall. So it's hard to say if it's a good or a bad thing. Those big agencies have chosen a specific business strategy of having lots of artists and options for their clients, and they can dominate search results through sheer volume. It's a good strategy for them, and it makes things easy for a client browsing their website. But is it the best thing for you as an individual? If you go with a big agency, you need to ask how your work will get fair visibility in their marketing. I don't know the details of how those big agencies work. If they can give you a satisfactory answer and provide you with regular work, that's great. But if they can't, you might be disappearing in the crowd. Something else to think about is how the agency presents itself online. There are a lot of new agencies around with slick websites, and they're great at social media. They look great. And there are a lot of very old agencies too, some as old as 50 years, with great networks, solid client relationships, etc. Also great. But anyone can start an illustration agency. Some of those new ones might look the part, but they might be run by people with not much more experience than you. I've seen a few of them come and go over the years. And some of those old agencies might be so stuck in the way things used to be that they'll become irrelevant in the next few years because they can't keep up and they're unwilling or unable to change. There are definitely a few of those around. Before you decide on any agency, ask a few of the artists they represent what they think. Send them a DM or an email. If you get good feedback, that's perfect. If you don't, well, maybe you should look elsewhere. In the past, agencies were fairly closed off, not secretive exactly, but protective of their ways of working. That's how all business used to be. You keep your internal processes private because it might give you a competitive advantage. That's not really how the world is now. So personally, I would be looking for an agency or a rep that is active in the creative community, shares information online, does portfolio reviews and things like that, and really tries to make the industry better. Not some stuffy old business that hoards all their secrets and doesn't get involved in anything that doesn't directly profit them. Jackie Winter are great at this. So many interesting and useful projects on the go. Corius, Pencil Booth, the list goes on and on. They do a lot of great work and they represent brilliant illustrators too. Nikki Field, the head of artist management at Jelly, shares insightful and useful information online. I don't know much about Jelly, but Nikki seems like a genuine, dedicated person in the industry. Grand Matter, a UK agency, a little smaller and a little newer, but already they've done important work in helping to diversify the industry. And Handsome Frank have a more modern business model. They do talks and they have a great podcast and they put themselves and their personality out there online. And they're much more likable for it. There are plenty of other great agencies out there, but these four have a mindset of, we can make the industry better for everyone and the artists we represent. That's what I try to do with this YouTube channel, and I think it's great for artists to get into that mindset as well. Share what you know freely and help other people. It's hard enough for people in the illustration industry. We might as well support each other along the way. That's not to say that any agency who doesn't talk online or share things on social media is bad. Maybe they would love to do it, but they just don't have time because they're busy working on awesome projects all the time. But pay attention to the agencies who are really trying to push the industry forward because they'll be the important ones in the future. There's a checklist of other things to think about when joining an agency in my book, The Illustrator's Guide. It's over there. If you've got a copy, give that section another read, or you can get it from the link in the description. If you want to learn more about the industry from my point of view, hit subscribe. There's 150 plus videos on here about marketing, finding clients, pricing, portfolio tips, all kinds of stuff, and it's all made to help you establish yourself as an illustrator with love. Here's a playlist to get you started. See you next time.